To spare you. That's for Frank. Let's have one more hand for the musicians.
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Right. Welcome. See some familiar faces from last night and some new faces. Last night was a wonderful evening, and today's been a wonderful day. Tonight's going to be a wonderful night. I know it. So, we're going to just start off with a poem that our friend Alison Lutterman wrote. A lot of you are familiar with her from coming before, and this was a really powerful poem that I think is important for all of us to hear. It's called The New Breed, and it's written for Emma Gonzalez and the student activists. I see her on TV screaming into a microphone. Her head is shaved and she is beautiful, and 17. And her high school was just shot up. She's had a walk by friends lying in their own blood, her teacher bleeding out. And she's my daughter, the one I never had. And she's your daughter and everyone's daughter. And she's her own woman in the fullness of her young fire, calling bullshit on politicians who take money from the gun makers. Tears rain down her face, but she doesn't stop shouting. She doesn't apologize. She keeps calling them out. All of them and all of us who didn't do enough to stop this thing. And you can see the gray faces of those who've always held power contort, utterly baffled to face this new breed of young woman, not silky, not compliant, not caring if they call her a 10 or a troll. And she cries, but she doesn't stop yelling truth into the microphone, though her voice is raw and shaking, and the Florida sun is molten brass. I'm 3,000 miles away, thinking how Neruda said the blood of the children ran through the streets without fuss, like children's blood. Only now she is. They are raising a fuss, shouting down the walls of Jericho. And it's not that we road-weary elders have been given the all-clear exactly, but our shoulders do let down a little. We breathe from a deeper place. We say to each other, well, it looks like the baton may be passing to these next runners, and they are fleet as thought, fiery as stars. And we take another breath and say to each other, the baton has been passed, and we set off running hard behind them. I'm really dedicated to the idea that these young people are our most important resource. And I'm glad to see some of you in the audience. Thank you for being here. We're going to have a few of our young people read for us first. And I'd like to introduce first Emily Boyer. And Emily will tell you a little about herself and do one of her poems.
As Alan said, and I went to Wellspring this past year, and it was super duper awesome. They fed us occasionally, and no, it was a really good experience. My poetry got better, and I got more confident in writing, and I don't know which came first, but it was a really good experience. So that's why I'm here, because I got to know Alan, and he invited me, so I'm really glad to see everyone. Okay. So, my poem's called The Apple, the Worms, and My Hair. Today we planted our first fruit tree. In fact, we planted its seed. The sunshine, morning frost, and afternoon sweat, and the yellow petals crowded our feet. Green leaves sang in soft winds, and years passed like this with cycles of bright leaves rotting and yellow crowdings evolving to crystallized tears falling until the fruiting of our tree. Along with it came worms malnourishing us and beehives giving us dipping sauce for the apples that weren't already property of the same worms we used to eat from the same dirt which later planted our fruit tree. But the apples we did share with those beings so bodiless and so soulful. Those apples, those feasts were so good. So succulent, I dyed my hair that same color, apple red. And then the worms bit into me too. Half as punishment and half because when our apple fruit rotted like the ripe leaves, the bodiless, soulful beings knew a place of feasts. They of course asked and I said, yes, as you please. So there we were, the worms, you, and me, waiting for the next cycle so we can eat our apples off our tree. Thank you.
Time moves on, and one of our favorite Wellspring students, someone who's lit up many hearts in here, is back today. She's just about to graduate from Ohio State, I'm sure with big honors, right? Yes. And it's just so exciting to see her thriving. Thank you, Wayne and Kimberly, for bringing her and having her. And Liz Heym.
Like Alan said, I'm Liz. I was at the Wellspring in 2013, so a while ago. And it was absolutely life-changing. As you can see, I'm still here, so like it must have made some lasting impact. So the poem I'm going to read, they tell you to write about what you know, so I wrote about my dorm room because I'm an RA and I've been in the dorms for 4 years, so it's been a lot of my life. So this poem's called 53 Years. They claim to clean this room every summer, wander through with a broom, maybe a vacuum, quick and decisive as if batting away a spider web, and then on to the next of thousands of rooms. They only have a summer. There are stains I can't scrub off, not sure what color the tiles once were. This building has become the product of time, and hundreds of temples leaned against cold walls, dimpled with swells of paint and cemented texture. Hairs from years ago waxed onto floor like fossils. My nose is pressed into the soft volume of a woman's shoulder, my back to the wall, spine buzzing with the melodic grate of a chair scraping against tile, the music from several floors below, footsteps, and slamming doors. I've always associated intimacy with privacy. Holding hands in public makes me nervous. But someone named Eric has carved his name into the wood at the foot of my bed, memorized by my toes. Even the ceiling tiles have begun to crack and shed their pale textured foam, this building shedding its skin, building new layers around the cement skeleton. My fingers find the narrow ridge of her hip. We both breathe air that smells like ourselves, but also the breath exhaled by someone else, ink and dust and stale water. She will leave in the morning, just as the sun streams through generations of dust.
Alan, they keep running off stage. Get them.
Last night we had a young lady do a poem that I think people kind of liked. Jessica somebody. Oh, Jessica, you're here. Does anybody want her to do a poem?
Yeah.
I guess you got to do it.
That's for me.
So
Sorry guys, these are my work clothes. I just like to say that. I worked a lot of hours today, so forgive me.
Yeah, where?
I work at Roush Honda as a mechanic.
All right.
You people love to make me feel uncomfortable. Okay. So this is a different poem. I wrote it a few months before the one that I read last night. My fingertips are cold in the night. In the night when I touch your skin, moving in small waves through each layer of brand new flesh. Too many nights with my right hand out of passenger windows in cars of people who never drive the speed limit when I ask them to, who are never aware of the fluorescent signs that light up when these cold lights caress them, but it's summertime. My fingers are still chilled, each of your bones pre-wrapped in heating blankets as if they were built to give me warmth, want so bad to give me warmth, but it's winter again. I am a baby on a doorstep of a home that belongs to an abandoned neighborhood. I have no excuses for the ghost town parents that forgot to ask me if I was cold before my extremities lost all ability to hold heat. There is no one around, yet you're laying next to a girl who you claim is beautiful. There is a stranger in my home. There's a stranger in this home. These bones are strangers, yet you act like you've known them for years. I'd like to shake each one's hand and learn why they have become so fragile to every touch. You say I'm strong like the strings that hold my body in place and teach it to move on the right cues. I've never been good at becoming familiar. My strings taught my bones to run, taught my skin to run, taught my mind to run, and I am so far away. Yet my fingertips on your skin feel so close to you. It's not your fault that you never noticed that my favorite time to run is at night. I'll never let you learn about the people that made my strings teach me to run. Never let you learn about the skin that was cold on mine. Never gave me heat. That skin only made me see that ghost town people aren't hard to find. They like a girl who knows how to run. Thank you. That curtsy was for you. I just want you to know that.
Thank you, Jessica. Jessica Kennedy, I didn't say her whole name before. Mickey, is this good?
It's a learning curve.
Okay. I think after all these years, that's better, I could tell. I'd like to thank some people for helping this happen. Everybody who made donations to bring the poets here. Melissa, yay, it's great to have you here. Who gave us a house to put some of them in. Mickey, of course, for beautifying the space and making everything run smoothly. Jen, for your wonderful flower arrangements. Kathy, manning the bookstore yet again. And Ava and David for those chocolates. People were talking about those. I think they're glad they're here. There are some posters, cargo posters back there, promoting the idea that everyone comes here with a unique gift, and we need to find what that gift is and give it to a world that really needs it. So please take those and share them. There's a website written on there and some really good things on that. And the website was made by Liz. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. So we had a poetry contest this year, and the 3 winners are going to come up and read their poems and get their awards. And third prize is Jennifer Cronk from Cincinnati. Hi, Jennifer.
This is called Hands.
Put the microphone down.
Not as tall. Okay. Hot sun blistered your 5-fingered canvas, painted copper polka dots as you earned your passage from shipyard docks to the lettered keys your fingers now dance across from 9 to 5. Half-century of hands working out their salvation with pitchforks, cowhides, and grocery carts. Scars of tireless labor grace your hands so mine wouldn't feel life's harsh reality. Hands of Hercules, I used to imagine, as I felt a pink handprint burn, mostly on my conscience. But your discipline bore fruit, yielded a harvest of righteousness in its time. You handed me the world, every pleasure too costly for a poor boy with 7 brothers and 2 sisters. Our 2-story dream of laughter-filled picket fences, built each drop of sweat, wiped away by calloused hands. All these years I fought loose, only to find your hands hold me now as never before, gripped by their story. Lie down, hands. Take your rest. It is my turn now.
Oh.
Second prize, all the way from California, Stephen Bochinski.
Hey everybody. Just before I start, I would say this is something that I wrote last month, but it's also something that happened 39 years ago, but it's also about the world. And at the time I was working as a pile driver. It was named Swan Island for reasons no one remembers. Hard hat and life jacket secure. Tool belt heavy at my waist with weapons of the trade. It was a job, a paycheck while building a dock into the Willamette. Pile drivers slammed away, banging my ears, thumping my chest, the marrow in my bones, the sharp bite of cannons too close. Those industrial giants hammering the day and night, their breath flecked with diesel spittle, rained on me and left an oily sheen upon the river. There I stood on its steel beam, high above the water where salmon swam against the current. The year my son was born, the day the shadow of a solar eclipse darkened my birthday. All the work stopped, and the quiet that was always there rose like a song in a cathedral. My ears still ring all these years later. And though I fear that listening to the loudness of the world for so long would make me deaf, I go on listening, awaiting the return of the swans the world needs.
Figured out. Our winner this year is the poet laureate of Athens, Ohio, and her name is Kari Gunter-Seymour.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Alan and Evie, because this is a lot of work, and everyone else who's helped, but particularly the two of you. This is amazing, and I'm trying to think, is this the 11th year, 12th year?
17th.
17th year. How old are you young ladies that read? Just a few years older, right?
I was 2 years old.
Isn't that amazing? Wow. Wow. Thank you hardly seems enough, does it? Phew. And Alan mentioned that it might be okay if I mention my project, the Women of Appalachia Project. We are steadfast working as fine art and spoken word artists to push back against the stereotype that Appalachian women are barefoot, toothless, uneducated, undergroomed, pregnant, yes, yes. And we do that very non-violently, but very confrontationally by hosting art exhibits and readings at which people can see that we are far from undereducated and that we're beautiful. So there are some cards on the back table, on the free table where the posters are. And if you're interested in submitting some work, because probably most of you have some people that have come from Appalachia, even the guy in California, you probably have some people that are somewhere from the mountains. I'll bet you here along the Appalachia. Yep, see, I knew it. So any ties to Appalachia, we'd love you to join us. Right now we have 9 states involved, and we have 2 trailing from New Mexico and Florida. So California would not seem that crazy, and you can always stay at our house. Yeah. So anyway, I am shocked and pleased, and this is wonderful, and I so admire people that are able to write these amazing long poems that take us somewhere. I'm afraid I'm a very short poem writer, but I hope that you enjoy this one. It's called All She Could Abide. Because her job was to stay clean and thankful, mostly invisible, as though telling her what to do told her who she was. She rubbed basil between finger and thumb to breathe the inside of a thing. Walked the verges of muddy stream, sugared scarp, and hilly breast, clear of knotted root and dirt-wrapped wire, color-flushed on wildflowers, her mind a buzz of song, psalm, and sonnet. Here, a dead bird, a tiny Christ riven in light, her sorrow lifted in wisps and moans to the mouth of the wind. In some languages, to be carried is the same as to fly. Shedding blouse, skirt, tender garments, she opens her flesh to pain-ripened sun, sways to the pitch and pluck of sky. Thank you.
Thanks, Kari. You've been in the war. One of the best things about this event is getting to meet these poets and spend time with them. And I can't remember when I've met someone more feelingful, intelligent, funny, beautiful, wonderful as Eleanor Wilner. She She is great. We did a workshop this afternoon, and it was just like wisdom spewing out with no sense of authoritarianism or I know this or I know that. Just sharing herself fully. And there's a lot to share. So Eleanor, if you could come up and read us some poems, we would love it.
Thank you, Alan, Abby, and everybody, especially the ones who came back. Shows courage, if not taste. David Lee's my brother. Well, I'm going to read you an old poem. It's kind of one of those poems that's written for kind of relief. So this is for Deb and Kathy and Evie and her wonderful women, and for the women of Appalachia. I know a few of them, and man, they are gorgeous. You know Diane Gilliam? Kettle Bottom, you know her stuff? We'll talk. I guess I should give you a little introduction to this poem. It's traditional in the history of poetry to invite the muse, right? And I'm all for tradition because I come from a long line of dead people. There's a couple of things about this poem I want to tell you. One of them, in case you don't recognize him, is Alexander. That's Alexander the Great. You probably know the story of how the high priestess tied this great knot. So my daughter gave me this. This is 15 meters of silver, folks, which will never see the ground again. The knot was so intricate that the man who could untie it, who had that subtlety, would be the ruler of the world. And Alexander came in, and with his sword, he cut it in two, thereby setting the problem-solving style of the West from that day. The other gloss I want to give you is, there's someone in here mentioned, his name is Lacan. He is a neo-Freudian French literary theorist. I say that with a certain scorn, who has confused a certain part of the male anatomy with symbol making. There she was for centuries, the big broad with the luscious tits, the secret smile, a toga of translucent silk, cool hand on the shoulder of the suffering poet, the tease who made him squeeze those great words out. He was the mirror and the lamp, she the torch who burned with the blue butane of a pure refusal. Too good for mortal use, her breath was cold as mountain streams, the chill of the eternal, no hint of plaque or any odor of decay. Ethereal as hell, a spirit in chiffon, the mystery is how she had got so rounded in the butt and all her better parts as soft as butter. Why such a wraith should be so ample, what her endowments had to do with that for which she set example. All this was surely mystery. Oh, that elusive object of desire, that untouched bride of quietness, that plump poetic dish who lived on air but looked as if she dined on pasta. Basta. A pox on the great Lacan who writes with his eraser, on all poetic graces mute and pensive, concave exactly where he is most extensive, Oh, look, what she has not, that he has got. A thing I'm too polite to mention, except to say it rhymes with Venus. It was the Latin word for tail. Its root, therefore, is not the same as pen, which comes from the word for feather. But enough of these fine distinctions. What a great tradition was born when Alexander whipped his penknife out, cut the knot she carefully had tied, leaped on his mount a perfect straddle, and let the crotch decide who was the horse and who was the rider, who was the muse and who the writer. I need water to put out that fire. I should apologize for writing long poems. Short poems are the best. I'm going to read you a poem called The Girl with Bees in Her Hair. She appeared out of the local air. I didn't know anything about her. So I made her a title, The Girl with Bees in Her Hair, just to see who she was. In a way, though, she comes kind of like Hamlet's ghost in such a questionable shape. So I think she comes to ask us some questions. The girl with bees in her hair came in an envelope with no return address. She was small, wore a wrinkled dress of figured cotton, full from neck to ankles, with a button of bone at the throat, a collar of torn lace. She was standing before a monumental house on a scale you see in certain English films. Urns, curved drives, stone lions, and an entrance far too vast for any home. She was not of that place, for she had a foreign look and tangled black hair, and an icon, heavy and strange, dangling from an oversized chain around her neck that looked as if some tall adult had taken it from his and hung it there as a charm to keep her safe from a world of infinite harm that soon would take him far from her and leave her standing as she stood now, barefoot, gazing without expression into distance, away from the grandeur of that house, its gravel walks